That's my favorite. Like I got the long, and then the short. Okay. So it's like this much leg, you know? It's like this much leg in the twist.
All right, good morning. Can you believe that it's the 30th of what was it, the 30th of Halloween? I don't know what day it is, right? It's the day before Halloween. Anyone else like really excited? I'm like, you had orange. I just saw orange and got excited, right? Really get back. I'm so excited for soccer practice today. Like, I'm gonna dress up as an inflatable T-Rex and throw candy at my players. I can't wait. Like,
Oh my
it's gonna be
God,
so much fun.
yesterday with this lady, she dressed up as a pinata, and so her husband walked around behind her with like a blow up bat. And then he would walk around like they were at a bar or something like that, and you hit her, and she just candy going, pinata.
That's amazing. I love that, right? Yeah, I plan to throw candy at little children tonight. I'm looking forward to it. It sounds amazing. With my little T-Rex arms, they'll be like flinging things like this. Right? I don't know how successful I'll be. I brought all of you candy as well. So I'll pass this around. There are some like really big Snickers here. My team thought it would be funny. So all of my I coach two sports teams, my oldest daughter's softball team and my middle daughter's soccer team. And they all know that I love Snickers, like it's my favorite candy bar. And so for some reason, they all thought it'd be funny to buy me a pack of full-size Snickers. And so I have like 100 and something Snickers, which sounds really cool, but I'm gonna get sick of them if I eat all of them. So I put like most of them, been handing them out. So if you like Snickers, help yourself to one. But I hope you all have a great Halloween. I'm so excited for it. This might be the last one that my kids like want to trick or treat. Every year I'm like, are we gonna go again? Like, I wait and hope. Right? I get to talk about my kids today, so that's exciting too. Anyway, anyone have fun plans for tomorrow? Is anyone dressing up? Yeah? What do you want to share? What are you dressing up as? Do you know how you know? You're like, I don't think you know. Very cute. How about you? That's fun too, right? Anybody else dressing up yet?
Chucky's wife.
Chucky's wife.
I know I'm really big, so it's kind of ironic, but yeah, I'm gonna be today.
Okay, fun, yeah. Oh my gosh, sorry. My kids would think that was funny. Jojo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, anybody else? Anyone else dressing up? My partner and I are going like tomorrow is like 80s. So I have like a bright green and pink fanny pack and like bright green shorts. I'm ready. Right? And really like weird old high top shoes, right? Like, but it'll be fun. Anything for candy. I'll do anything. What's that?
That's so fair.
I know, right? I'm excited. All right. Today we'll talk about chapter 12, which is pregnancy and birth. So that'll be our topic for today. It'll take us a couple of days to get through. So again, help yourself to the candy that's coming around. So in this chapter, we'll talk a little bit about how you get pregnant, what happens during pregnancy. We'll talk about infertility and some of the different fertility methods. And I kind of have like a story to like read through that to share with you. The experience of pregnancy, childbirth, and then a little bit about after childbirth. So it's kind of the plan for this chapter. So we talked about how you don't get pregnant. Now we're going to talk about how you do get pregnant, right? So that's the focus here. And it's not by sitting on Santa's lap and getting lots of elves, as my 10-year-olds thought. So now my 10-year-olds know how you get pregnant, and they better avoid that for a very long time, right? So that is our focus here. And I want to start by going backward for a moment and revisiting the menstrual cycle, right? Because it plays a really big role in pregnancy. So if you remember, and we talked about this weeks ago, right? The menstrual cycle, roughly 28 days, roughly, depending on the individual. And after a woman ovulates, there's this period of time, right? Called the fertile window. And so during this span of like 3 to 4 days or so is when a woman is most likely to get pregnant if she's either trying actively through intercourse or through like one of the assisted fertility methods we're going to talk about, this is the span of time when you're most likely to get pregnant. Now, very difficult to get pregnant before you ovulate because there's no egg there. I won't say it's impossible, but the chances are very, very, very slim. And if it's very late in your cycle, it's also very slim. So there's this kind of ideal period of time that you can either use to your advantage or you can avoid depending on your goals, right? So the menstrual cycle plays a really big role in this whole process. And the idea is that when sperm are introduced into a woman's body, right, whether that's through intercourse or through one of the fertility methods we'll talk about, when a sperm penetrates the outer coating of an egg cell, so a sperm cell from a man penetrates the outer coating of an egg cell from a woman, they fuse together to form one fertilized cell. Now, a person's not pregnant yet at that point. That fertilized egg has to then travel down through the fallopian tube and implant into the uterine wall. When that happens, right, then a person is pregnant, right? And you can test for that, and we'll talk about all of that in a little bit. But only one sperm of the millions of sperm that enter during intercourse, for example, right? Only one out of all of those millions will fertilize an egg, right? And it's interesting, the second that that happens, that egg cell actually changes in its cellular composition. It creates like a barrier that no other sperm can penetrate, and shuts down. It almost sends out like a small electrical pulse that repel the other sperm away from the egg. So really like difficult odds. But through that process, right, that's how pregnancy begins. So sperm and egg meet, it then has to implant into the uterine wall. And at that point, it starts to release hormones that we can detect through a pregnancy test. So I found a little video just on YouTube, but I thought it was a really great like animation of what this whole process looks like. It kind of has this like very epic story feel to it, like an epic battle of the sperm. I almost feel bad for the sperm in this because of the tone they take with it. You can see if you feel the same way. But I'll play this for you. It's a few minutes long. And I think it does a really great job of kind of walking you through those steps and what they would look like. This is all just an animation of what that looks like, right? That the egg and sperm have to meet. One fertilizes that egg, right? And then it creates this whole process. It starts unfolding to form a zygote and a blastocyst and then an embryo and then a fetus, which we'll talk more about as we progress through the slides. So whether it's through intercourse or an assisted reproductive method, when sperm is introduced, right, that is the kind of process that then has to happen. And you're most likely to get pregnant during that fertile window. Now, unfortunately, in our culture, in our society, there's a lot of infertility. Infertility is definitely on the rise. It's something over the last like 20 years that we've seen more and more about. So before we talk about like kind of more about the process of pregnancy, I want to talk a little bit about assisted reproductive methods, because a lot of couples are needing to use these. Now, infertility is defined as the inability to conceive, so get pregnant, after 1 year of regular sexual intercourse without the use of any form of birth control. So trying actively for a year to get pregnant and not being able to, you qualify as being struggling with infertility. And now this can obviously be heterosexual couples who are actively trying to get pregnant and struggling, or it could be like gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender couples who are missing an ingredient or missing a part of the body in order to allow them to get pregnant. But there are a ton of different options for people to get pregnant beyond just kind of traditional male-female intercourse. And so more and more people are getting pregnant on their own, right? Like without the help of a partner, right, through these methods. Or again, it could be like a couple that is missing something or struggling due to a lot of different reasons. And there's a lot of reasons why somebody might struggle with infertility. Can you think of a reason why a woman might struggle with infertility? Yeah. Stress, definitely. Stress releases a lot of hormones, which can influence your menstrual cycle. It can influence your likelihood of getting pregnant as well. Can you think of any other reasons? Yeah. What was that? Drugs. Okay, uses of substances can definitely affect all sorts of things in your body. Yeah.
Like PCOS.
Yeah, polycystic ovarian syndrome. When women have irregular menstrual cycles, it's very difficult. I erased it. I might keep pointing to something that's not here. It's difficult to time, right? It's difficult to time that fertile window. if you don't have regular menstrual cycles. Can you think of any other reasons why? Yeah.
STDs or STIs.
Yeah, so some STDs and STIs can block or scar the fallopian tubes, making it very difficult for eggs to travel down and sperm and egg to meet. Right, that's another reason, yeah. Fibroids, right, little like ribs or fibroids in any of those parts of the body can also interfere, yeah. Your age, yeah, the older you get, the less eggs that you have, the lower the egg quality, right? You start having more irregular menstrual cycles, your hormones are a little different. So after 35, they actually consider you like old in terms of pregnancy. Yeah. Your weight is another one. Affects all those things that we just talked about, right? So damage to those different parts of the body, scarring, STDs, STIs, irregular cycles, conditions, like all of those things are common issues for women. How about for men? Can you think of any issues for men? Obviously, like stress and drug use would still apply, but can you think of any reasons why men might struggle with fertility? Yeah. Low sperm count. It's a really common one, but sometimes men have a low sperm count or their sperm aren't very mobile and viable, so they don't have the energy to make the travel. Some of that is related to diet, some of it's related to weight, some of it's genetic. Also anatomical issues. Maybe they have parts that are damaged, right? There's problems with the vas deferens, that sperm carrying tube, right? And so there's a lot of reasons why people might struggle to get pregnant. Now, a lot of people get pregnant very easily, sometimes even unintentionally, but if you've been trying for a year unsuccessfully, technically we would call that infertility. Now, we actually have one of the top 10 places in the world in Thousand Oaks for infertility, which is kind of cool. It's Fertility and Surgical Associates in Thousand Oaks. But there's a lot of things that you can do to counter. Okay, so one of the easiest things to do is to start timing your menstrual cycle, right? And we mentioned this last time with birth control pills. You can actually take birth control pills to regulate your menstrual cycle, and that will allow you to kind of have it be a little more regular, and you can time it for getting pregnant. You can also take fertility drugs to help you produce more than one egg. And you want to know what the side effect of that can be? More than one egg? Twins or triplets or octuplets or whatnot, right? People can have more than one baby that way. So I would love to share like kind of our story with you, if that's okay. I just needed one nod and I got two, so we're good. But I can kind of weave it into this. And so my partner and I, when my partner hit 30, she was like, I want kids. I want them now. I was like, oh, okay. That happened so quickly, right? Like literally the day she turned 30, she was like, babies, we need babies. I was like, well, I've been trying for years. This is not working. I don't know. Right? Like I've been visualizing, but no, right? Obviously, we're missing an ingredient, right? Like between the two of us, we have two uteruses, we're two uteruses, but no sperm, right? So we went to an infertility doctor in like down in Manhattan Beach. It was right next to a Susie Cakes. So I was so happy. I was like, every time we went, I got cupcakes. So the people there were horrible. The doctor wouldn't even look at me. He was so like homophobic. And the first thing he said to my partner was, you're too fat to get pregnant. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to punch this guy in the face, right? Like, I'm going to get in trouble. He's like, I need you to lose some weight and then come back. My partner is like Capricorn, like puts her mind to something that happened. She lost 20 pounds. I was so mad, like, cause she wasn't overweight. He just was a rude guy. But he told her, you're overweight. It's affecting your hormones, affecting your menstrual cycle. Let's see if you can lose some weight, come back and then we'll start. Okay, so we went back. And so obviously we're missing an ingredient. Okay, so we went through and we picked a sperm donor. And this was a really long process, right? We're both teachers. So we made PowerPoints and pictures and we showed them to everyone we knew and had people vote. But we went online and we picked a sperm donor. So my partner always wanted to carry a baby. I have never wanted to. It's just totally not my gender identity. And so it worked out perfect. So what we did is we used her eggs and we found a sperm donor to represent me. Right? So we found someone with the same height, hair color, eye color. Interests were like a bonus, but we looked for like genetic things that would make them look very similar to me, same background or whatever. Okay, so we got sperm. Sperm's about like $750 a vial, right? Free for people who have it. We had to pay $750 for like this much of it, right? Not fair, but that's okay. So like we got sperm And we went to this doctor and we tried a kind of a combination of things. So we said, I'm going to give you a drug called Clomid. It's a fertility drug. Clomid costs $400 each time you take it. So this is Clomid. This is sperm. Sperm's more expensive than the drug, apparently. And then there were cupcakes. We could have the cupcake cost. No, I'm just kidding. That was quite a bit, probably. So my partner took this fertility drug, which causes you to release more than one egg. And then we went in, and the first process that we tried was something called artificial insemination. Artificial insemination is now called IUI. Intrauterine insemination, same thing, right? And there's a very common stereotype with IUI or artificial insemination, and that is the turkey baster. My partner told me, I think you better bring this home. So I brought it, then I'll have to take it home and watch it. But what is the problem with using a turkey baster for artificial insemination? Can you see an issue with this massive thing?
It could destroy the sperm.
Okay, definitely possible. Remember the size of a typical male ejaculate? It's the size of a teaspoon. So that would be like that, right? So a turkey baster, despite being the myth, is not ever going to work, right? This is way too big, right? The sperm would just fall right out. This was featured in a movie, so I'll play this for you and then we'll come back. If you've seen the movie The Switch, these were, and it's typically like either like a single woman or like a lesbian couple, they got their turkey baster and they're ready to go, right? Just to debunk that a little bit. Again, the size of a typical male ejaculate is about the size of a teaspoon. Would definitely not work in this. And put it back in my bag so don't forget. I want my Thanksgiving dinner. Right, so we go through this process of artificial insemination. What they do with this is they time your menstrual cycle and they're waiting for that fertile window. Okay, the second that you ovulate, you go into the doctor and they take a small little catheter, like really tiny small little catheter, and they put the sperm in it and inject it up into the cervix, up into the vaginal canal, into the cervix. And then the sperm are supposed to swim the rest of the way, meet the egg, and pregnancy to occur. So basically you're bypassing the step of having like male-female intercourse. You're timing it with your menstrual cycle. And to add to that, we used a fertility drug to help us have a better chance because there's more than one egg. Now, one cycle of IUI or intrauterine insemination costs on average $3,000. Okay, so this is for IUI, and that's one cycle. So just for one cycle, you've got the IUI procedure, you got the medication, and then you have the sperm. Okay, so that's one cycle of this. We did this 3 times, and we had no luck, right? 3 times, lots of cupcakes, right? Because you got to go down there a lot. And we timed it, we used the medication, nothing. Right? And so the guy was like the doctor, who I really hated this guy, right? Like I like resented that we stayed there as long as we did. We moved on eventually, I'll get there. But we did this 3 times and he's like, okay, maybe there's something going on that we haven't investigated. Let's take a look at your partner's, like my partner's fallopian tubes and uterus and make sure everything is okay. Because we just assumed everything was fine. We were just missing sperm, right? Turned out my partner's fallopian tubes were completely blocked and scarred. That can just happen over time. It can happen from birth. It can happen for a variety of reasons. So my partner then had to have surgery. The surgery, though, only $50. How do you figure, right? Go insurance. So super cheap. What a steal, right? It was just the copay for the hospital, really cheap. So my partner had to have surgery to have her fallopian tubes like blocked off. So basically what they did is they cauterized them. So now we can no longer do IUI. IUI banks off the fact that the egg's going to travel down the fallopian tube and sperm and egg will meet. If you sever the fallopian tubes, you can no longer have it happen that way. So we move on, right? Now, the next thing that we have to consider is something called IVF. And it takes away the step of eggs and sperm meeting on their own. And it happens now in a very like controlled laboratory setting. IVF is ridiculously expensive. So at this point, we found out my partner had surgery. We had gone through 3 times with this guy. And I insisted that we went somewhere else. Because again, he was just always so rude. He told my partner she was too fat. my partner's not heavy at all, right? Like, I think she's perfect, but whatever, right? Like, so we went to this place in Thousand Oaks, met this new doctor who was so kind. I was like, oh my God, why didn't we come to you sooner? Like, nicest man ever, Dr. Kumar, I'll remember him forever. And he's like, we're gonna try IVF. He's like, now IVF, we're gonna need another round of the sperm, obviously. And then we need to do a bunch of medications. So IVF, anyone know on average how much one round of IVF costs? Any guesses? It's more than this. Any guess? 10? That's a good guess. 12. $12,000 per round of IVF. Okay, now that includes everything, thankfully. So we start a round of IVF. The way IVF works is it's a month-long process. And so what you do is you inject someone with hormones every single day for a month. So I gave my partner shots every day in the stomach and in the like sides. And those hormones are causing you to create eggs. So in a way, it's a fertility drug, right? In a sense, you're creating eggs. And so over the course of roughly like 3 to 4 weeks, everyday injections. And then when you're about to ovulate, before those eggs are ovulated out and released, you go in and surgically remove them. Right? So what they do is they take a long needle and go up through the vaginal canal and pull them out of the ovary one at a time. Okay? So my partner grew like 5 to 6 eggs, which is like a good amount. It's not a lot, but it was okay. She grew 5 to 6 eggs. They pulled them out. We introduced the sperm to represent me. We did that twice. You adding this up? How expensive my children were yet? We did this twice. No luck, right? And we were about ready to adopt, about ready to give up. And the doctor was like, I have one idea if you're open. We're like, what does that mean? Right? Like, I was a little nervous about that. And he's like, you guys have a unique situation in that you're both women. And I was like, I don't want to carry a baby, right? That would like break our relationship. It just would never like work. It would break me. He's like, no. You're going to grow eggs and we'll try something different. And I was like, okay, right? And my partner's like, oh, I get to inject you every day for a month. She was so excited. I wasn't so excited at all. And so I went through a round of IVF. And the doctor, we were ready to give up. We had spent so much money at this point. He's like, I'll pay for this one. That's how great this guy was. He paid for the whole thing, like, because he was so convinced that he could make it work. He did, obviously. So I went through 4 weeks of growing eggs. Every day got injections. I grew 52 eggs. I had a hidden talent of egg growing. Who knew? My partner grew like 5 or 6, 52. And the funniest thing is I joked with him about it. Like they were doing an ultrasound. I'm like, watch, I'm going to grow like 52 eggs. I grew exactly 52 eggs. It was so weird. But they went through, they removed all 52 eggs, 52 injections with a needle. You're asleep during it, thankfully. But it was so funny as a side note, the process of growing eggs changed me forever. Like we went out to eat at one point while we were doing that, and I ordered a salad instead of French fries. And it was the hormones, I swear. Like I like never ate salads before, and now I eat salad. Like the hormones changed me forever. Side note. So we go through this whole process. I grow 52 eggs, we pull them out. Now we go back, we pick another sperm donor, but this time to represent my partner. Okay, so everything, her height, her weight, her ethnicity, her eye color, her hair color, all that kind of stuff. And so what we did then, which was so unique, and I don't know anyone who's had this done. Yeah, sorry.
Really quick, was that another or second?
Yeah. Oh, so every time 750. Every time. So 6 times 750. Yeah. Every time. Okay. So we go through and we take my eggs with a sperm donor to represent my partner, and we put them together in one dish. And then in another petri dish, this is all done in a lab, obviously. In the other one, her eggs with a sperm donor to represent me. Okay, all the eggs and sperm fuse, they meet together. We took 2 from her group and 1 from my group, put them in her uterus, right, through this procedure, very similar to the IUI, but they put them higher up, and we got pregnant, right? So 6 times trying, my oldest child cost us $48,000.
Do you tell her every day?
No, but I want to. Sometimes when she's a moody little pre-teenager, I want to be like, do you know how much Her sisters were like bargain basement, like $3,000, like for twins, like, and I overpaid. No, I'm just kidding. So we go through this whole process. And we put 2 of her eggs, 1 of mine in, and we end up with 1 baby. We actually had twins for 3 days. We joke that my oldest ate her twin because she's so similar to the 2 of us. It's weird. I don't know how it happened, but I swear somehow she's like both of us combined. But we did this whole process and we end up with 1 kid, our oldest, Kaya. Now, Kaya looks exactly like me. So likelihood that she's my genetic like egg and the sperm donor to represent my partner, we'll never test, but it's like, it's obvious. We're so similar. I mean, she likes chocolate. It's totally like genetically related. I'm just kidding. But she and I look very, very similar. And then so we go through, we have the whole process. We give, she gave birth to her. I said we gave birth to her. She gave birth to her. I didn't do that. And then like a year later, we wanted 1 more. And so we were like, well, we better start now because it took us 2 years to go through this whole process. Right. My partner was getting upset. She's like, I'm 32. I wanted him at 30. Right. And I was like, well, it takes time. Calm down. Right. It takes time and cupcakes. But we started right away and we got pregnant on the very first try with our twins. It was like her body knew what to do now. We had figured it out. So my twins only cost $3,000. I think I just said 2, but it was 3. $3,000 for my twins. Right. 1 try. We already had eggs. When you do IVF, they save the eggs you don't use. And so we didn't have to go through any of that. We just had to do the like inserting them in, and we put in 4. The doctor was like, let's put in 4 because we know the odds are low. And I was like, we're going to end up with twins. Can we just do 1? He's like 2. And he's like, no, let's do 4 and see what happens. Of course, we ended up with twins. And the crazy thing is 1 of them looks just like her older sister. They look like twins, which is wild because they're 2 years apart. And then my middle one looks just like my partner. So most likely like 2 of them are my genetic material and 1 hers. But it's really, it was like this huge process to have them. And again, like 48,000 plus 3, so $51,000 for those kids, right? I mean, money well spent, but still, it was quite a process. So those are some of the things that you can do. That was our journey. I'll see if I can find a picture, just show you. Well, I have a clip I'll show you in a minute, but it's really like, there's so many possibilities you can do. And now they even have these new things like Gift and Zift are versions of IVF. And they've almost hit the point where they can combine 2 eggs together to create a baby without sperm. It's been done twice in a lab in Switzerland. And so they're actually like developing these new things that can be done. But there's all these like little variations on it. You can even choose the sex of a baby now. When you are going through this process, they can test the embryo and you can decide. It's an extra like $5,000, so we didn't do it, but it's something that you can do. And then there's other ones where you can manually insert a sperm into an egg as well. So there's like all these variations on it, but in essence, you can kind of go with something like an IUI, which is the least invasive. And then you move up to things like IVF and so on. And these things are typically not covered by insurance because having a baby is typically considered a choice rather than like a medical necessity. Did you have a?
Yeah, I was talking to the first doctor never checked her.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be like almost
Negligence in a way?
well, just like you would just double check that,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it should be kind of like you take your tests, you take your blood, it should probably be the same for that.
Right. And, and we did talk to him about that. And he's like, well, those procedures to check are actually quite expensive as well. I didn't even add that up here, right? Like the scans to do that are elective procedures. So they're like in the thousands as well. So I think he just assumed that everything was fine and we were missing an ingredient and trial and error might be the best way. But yeah, it would have saved us probably a year had we started that way. And if we had gone to the other guy first, he probably would have started that. Yeah.
I quite like that you don't know like the genetic material of each child. I love it so
Yeah.
much because like
So do we.
that saves like the stigma of like kids, like the stereotype of like kids asking, oh, so which one of you is like my biological, like it saves that.
Yeah.
Not that many kids actually ask that, but it's like common for people to think that.
Sure.
That kids would ask that. I like that you don't know.
I like that we don't know too. Like it's kind of obvious, but we'll never like check, and who knows, I truly believe somehow genetically my oldest, like, because she absorbed her twin, it almost feels like it's possible in some way. I mean, I don't know, but it's wild though. I have to tell you, because I had that sex talk with him. I had the talk with him, as I told you, like a few weeks ago, and I wasn't prepared for that element of it, because they were like, well, then wait. And I could see it, and I was like, uh-oh, like I hadn't thought that through in my mind. They were like, but then does that mean there's some guy out there that's my dad? And I'm like, no, like, no, like, and so we went through like a closed donor. So I won't say they can't find out, but it'd be very, very difficult for them to find out, and they wouldn't be able to till they're 18. But it was anonymous. So it's messy. Like technically, they all could one day be like, I want to find out who my biological dad is. I pray that never happens, because that would hurt my feelings. But it's possible one day, because we did have to get, sperm from somebody. We thought about, I have a biological brother who is 3 years younger than me, but I didn't want my kids being like, my uncle's actually my dad, like something weird like that, and creating tension. So we went a random route, but it could one day be interesting. I wasn't expecting that to come up as much as it did in the sex talk. One other option, so sometimes if all of that doesn't work, there is another option you can consider of surrogacy, right? Surrogate parenting is another thing that you can do. And so with this one, the stereotype of this is that like you have to have sex with this person and they're carrying like someone else's baby. It's your baby that they're carrying. So they go through this process of IVF, and they would remove your eggs, your partner's sperm or donor sperm, and then they put that baby into somebody else who's just carrying it. So it's a very common thing used by like gay men or women who have a problem with their uterus, to put that fertilized egg into someone else's body, and they're just the vessel to carry it, but it's genetically related to you. So really interesting as another possibility. That one is ridiculously expensive, like $50,000 to $100,000, because you're paying somebody to carry a baby for you for 9 months. Yeah.
Why reject something that's not theirs?
It could. It's not very common. They typically, so again, lots of ways to get pregnant. However, you get there, right, either through surrogacy or IVF or IUI or intercourse, right? Once you have had that egg and sperm implant into the uterine wall, you are pregnant. And in order to find out if you're pregnant, what most people do is they take a pregnancy test. There's tons of these, right? So I brought a few of them, right? There's lots of different brands. Some are digital, some are not digital. They give you happy faces or smiley faces or 2 lines or 1 line or pregnant or not pregnant. There's a ton of them. But what these tests are looking for is a hormone called HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. And this hormone is released once the egg has implanted into the uterine wall. So once egg and sperm meet, they travel down the fallopian tube, implants into the uterine wall, and then this hormone is released, indicating pregnancy. Now, in the very beginning, the traces, there's like very small amounts of this hormone, and then it builds the longer that somebody has been pregnant. So it might take a few weeks for someone to detect this. Typically what you do with these is you urinate on the stick, right? And what it will do is indicate whether this hormone is in your blood, in your urine or not. And then depending on the result, blood tests are usually done afterward as a way to confirm. So I have a clip of this as well. If you've seen the movie Juno, this whole movie also a lot about pregnancy, lots of movies about this. She said, I drank my weight in Sunny D, right? So she had to go to the bathroom, yes, but actually drinking a lot of fluid will dilute your urine and make it less likely to get a positive result, or an accurate result, I should say. So, and she's doing that in the middle of the day. Typically what they encourage with these is to do them first thing in the morning, right? When you first wake up in the morning, your urine is the most concentrated. You've been sleeping, so you haven't been drinking anything. That's when they tend to be the most accurate. So oftentimes people will use one of these early in the morning, ideally. If it comes back positive, then you go to a doctor and they do a blood test, bless you. And the blood test will test for HCG. And they can often tell you at that point if it's confirmed that you're pregnant or not. Sometimes they can even tell you based on the amount of it in your system, how many babies you're having. right? So if you have a very high level very early, it usually indicates twins. At a low level, like a lower average level would be 1. And from all of that, we can also calculate the due date of the baby. Now, if somebody has had an infertility method done, they probably know exactly when all these procedures took place. But if you maybe had like intercourse multiple times over a span of like a period of time, you might not know which one was the one that got you pregnant. Typically, we can calculate this based off the blood results. And we do it on a rule called Nagel's rule, based off the doctor who coined it. You figure out the due date by subtracting 3 months from the first day of the last menstrual period and then adding 7 days. And what that does is it gives you a rough estimate of when that baby will be born. Babies will be born. Very few babies are born on their due date. Very, very few. But it'll give you a rough estimate, and then you can kind of proceed with that knowledge. So I'm usually starting with these little tests and then going to a blood test afterward to confirm. Questions, thoughts, comments, stories, anything here?
I just have a comedic, coincidence. I was born exactly 2 months before my due date.
Okay. 2 months early. That's pretty early, right? Yeah, I mean, it's really uncommon to be born on your due date. Or 2 months before, right? Yeah. But 2 months before, right? And sometimes they miscalculate the due date too, right? Again, sometimes it's not always easy, especially if people don't remember when their menstrual cycle was or they're irregular, all that can throw it off. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, anything else here? Keep going. So once pregnancy has been confirmed, right? You're pregnant, you have a baby or babies, depending, they start an incredible process of growth over roughly 9 months, right? 9 months is the traditional length of time of pregnancy. When a person is pregnant, we call it prenatal development. It comes from the term pre-nasi, which means before birth in Latin. And that's where prenatal comes from. And we go through an incredible process of unfolding over that period of time. We start out as what we would call a zygote. A zygote is just that fertilized cell. Egg and sperm have met. It's a zygote for just a very short period of time. And then that cell becomes a blastocyst once it starts to divide and start to have the cells be reproducing and dividing. Then it becomes an embryo and then fetus, which is Latin for offspring or young one. Right? So up till 3 months, you're considered an embryo. And after 3 months, you're then called a fetus until the baby's born, and then it's a newborn baby. So an incredible unfolding. And when you have egg and sperm meet, it's literally the size of like the tip of a pin, like the tiniest little microscopic organism. And then by the time you're born, roughly 7 to 9 pounds, almost the size of a pumpkin for Halloween, right? Pumpkin or like a watermelon, depending. Some babies are even bigger, but 7 to 9 pounds is pretty average. I have a cool video that is an animation of that process. I will warn you, there's a little bit of nudity in it. The nudity is not the hard part to watch, though. It's the salsa dancing at the beginning. It's really horrible, but I had to watch it, so I left it in there for you to see, right? You're welcome. So I just want to play this for you. It's brief.